All right, I'm going to weigh in now on something that's a little difficult, and it's not only because of the issues where I don't really think that if you put an opinion out there on Israel and Palestine, you can really change any minds anymore. I think a lot of people are really set in their ways. It also has to do with the fact that I don't like Seth Meyers or Meghan McCain, and I think that this was a really cringe-worthy segment on TV. But I will say that it's clear that Seth Meyers is on TV in order to control what the audience sees and is basically a political operative. And look, many of these people will say, well, I have this platform. Why can't I advocate for the policies that I want? I get that, but you're supposed to be a late night comedy host, okay? You're not supposed to be a political pundit. People go to late night comedy, or at least they used to, in order to hear about movies or watch stand up acts. It used to be, by the way, back in the day, it used to be really more stand up acts that would they would guest star on, especially Johnny Carson's show. And unfortunately, the needle has moved considerably since, especially Donald Trump got elected, because, and probably even before that, because now these corporate owned media giants know that they have a captive audience when they're talking about some of these people that still watch like ridiculous late night TV shows. I remember, of course, Conan O'Brien used to have a really zany show after Jay Leno. That was, in my opinion, the best era of late night. Also, I think Craig Ferguson did a great job. Now, what happened was that Meghan McCain went on Seth Meyers' stupid show and talked about her stupid show with Joy Behar. And and this is something I don't even want to go through the whole video because it was so nauseating to watch how Seth Meyers basically coached her through this conversation about how evil Donald Trump was and how awful he had been to her dad. And then he began to shift gears and try to get her to apologize and walk back her words about Ilhan Omar. And my opinion is this, okay? What they were trying to say for essentially was this, that any of this criticism that you had for Ilhan Omar was incitement against her, and it caused the death threats and it caused all of this hatred against her. You know what? If you want to say that, that's fine. But remember, you host a TV show every night that is basically inciting against the sitting president all the time. That's what late night TV is doing. That's what a lot of the media is doing. And you have TV shows that are on a lot of these networks. CBS is a different network. I believe Seth Meyers is on NBC. But CBS has that show, The Good Fight, which recently had this promo for one of their shows where the narrator was saying, "Well, I think that it is time to punch Nazis." And by Nazis, he didn't really mean, actual people who goose step through Berlin. He was talking about people that have views that are considered more edgy and unconventional. That's what a Nazi is right nowadays. It's become slang for people that have edgy views that are not conventional. That's why you have people who are getting banned all the time. I include Louis Farrakhan in there. By the way, the point of this video is that I believe that eventually the Facebook ban on Louis Farrakhan will be lifted and he'll be back. And it'll essentially be because there are enough people who are willing to say, look, Farrakhan's comments and his views are allowable because he represents the right type of people. Look, I've said from the beginning I don't believe in censoring even Louis Farrakhan. But what they will try to do is to put him a little rank. They'll try to promote him one rank higher than the other people that were banned. Laura Loomer, Mr. PJW. So this is essentially the dawn of our caste system of communications. Now, what happened was that Meghan McCain refused to retract her opinion and her words, and her husband, Ben Dominic, who is Jewish and who actually he's the editor-in-chief and also the publisher of The Federalist, which I do like a lot of the stuff in The Federalist. He said, I see that Seth Meyers, the untalented piece of S who only has his job because he regularly gargled Lorne Michaels' balls, went after my wife tonight with his idiotic anti-Semitic bull S. You can see I'm trying to censor my cursing because I want to see if it affects the algorithm. And then another thing he said is, Seth is an awful person who is known within the industry for how terrible he is. He is a monumental a-hole who is utterly unfunny. He deserves the mockery he receives from all the people who laugh at him. Here is proof that white men get ahead despite their obvious lack of talent. It's Seth Meyers who would beg for a third of the viewers at The View. He's awful, untalented, and a perfect definition of a cuck. But the best thing is how much all the people around Seth Meyers talk about what a crappy person he is. Because, oh, it is sad, so terrible, but he deserves all of it. Then he later apologized, saying, I love my wife. I apologize for rage tweeting about how Seth Meyers treated her. I don't like him. I think he's a hack, but I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry to anyone I offended. Now, he got really ratioed on that tweet, but the fact is most of the people that were ratioing him were people with blue check marks. It's the irony of Dominic joking that Meyers regularly gargled Lorne Michaels' balls is that earlier this year, the Federalist fired columnist D.C. McAllister for making homophobic comments to reporter Yashar Ali. A gay man commenting on a heterosexual relationship is just sad, pathetic, really. I think at Yashar has a crush on me. Maybe I'm making him doubt his love of penis. So that is pretty funny. But saying that Seth Meyers gargled Lorne Michaels' balls isn't as homophobic as things that other people have said. Look, if you go to TYT and actually no, Steven Crowder, if you go to his channel, there's a video of him basically crashing an event held by Cenk Uygur where he goes in dressed as Cenk Uygur and pretending he's him, imitating him. And Cenk basically says, oh, this guy is basically making his career off of riding my D. And that was never deemed homophobic, right? Because it's almost, look, men express ourselves in certain ways, and to say things like that's an expression of basically how, relational dynamics. If you are gargling someone's balls, it essentially means that you are prostrating yourself to him. You're basically taking whatever they're dishing at you, and that was the point. Now, most of the people who tweeted in response were saying, "Oh, Seth's the nicest person in the world." Seth Meyers is a piece of crap. And here's one of his videos. And this, if you're on the left here, I mean, by all means, judge this.
As we mentioned, yesterday was the first day of the Democratic National Convention, and while there were messages of unity from Michelle Obama, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders, the evening was marred not by all Bernie supporters, but by a small percentage, members of the hardcore Bernie or Bust movement, who chanted and booed through most of the evening. Which brings me to a new segment called Hey! Hey! What's going on? I tuned in last night, and there was more white booing than the Casper movie. Look, I know you're Bernie or Bust, but the results are in. Bust won. We don't have time for this. Donald Trump is ahead in the polls. The House is on fire. Stop crying because we're not putting it out with your hose. Hey, pay attention. We are on the cusp of electing a racist demagogue, and that never ends well. I don't know which class you ditched to go to those Bernie rallies, but I have a feeling it was history. You're like a Cavaliers fan who goes to the games and boos when LeBron dunks with the wrong hand. Oh, wait, that would never happen because that is ridiculous. But I know what you're going to say. I don't know anyone who's planning to vote for Trump. Oh, you don't? Did you ask everybody in your yoga class? Did you check with the entire drum circle? Because guess what? You know you have that crazy uncle you only see at Thanksgiving? Well, this country is about 48% crazy uncles. And it's about to be Thanksgiving all day, every day. And please don't say, pass the gravy, because if Trump is elected, no one gets gravy. Trump gets all of the gravy. Also, because of you, Bernie is going to have to campaign for Hillary every day until Election Day, and he shouldn't have to do that. One, because he hates her. It's just unlike you, he's adult enough to pretend he doesn't. And two, Bernie should be on a well-earned vacation, just sitting on a stoop, drinking cream soda and yelling at people to put their garbage in the trash can. And another thing, if you're going to put tape over your mouth to symbolize that you are being silenced, don't agree to do an interview.
Is there anything Hillary Clinton could say or do to win you over?
One or the other. Tape or talking, you can't do both. Look, I get disappointment. We've all experienced disappointment. I couldn't get Rihanna to go out with me, but I don't stand in the kitchen and boo my wife. At least not while she's telling me how she plans to make my life better. Bernie did a great job. You did a great job. Your passion changed the Democratic Party, and that is no small thing. You should be proud of yourselves for his campaign, but also you have to be quiet now. Now is the time to be quiet. This has been, hey.
All right, that was him talking to people who had been elected delegates to the convention on behalf of Bernie Sanders. And by the way, remember, I'm the most anti-Bernie person that there is, but when I saw people at the convention basically getting harassed and their signs taken away, and I ended up later actually speaking to a couple of them through the story that I've written, the Mattis file. That was something that really changed my mind about just how important it was that Hillary Clinton cheated Sanders in the primary and then basically subjugated him to her. It's almost as if Bernie was gargling Hillary's balls the entire time, as one would say. Now, let's switch back a little to the issue of Ilhan Omar and everything. This is one of the problems that I'm seeing with people who are trying to say, well, don't worry, Joe Biden is going to become the Democratic nominee. I wouldn't vote for Joe Biden anyway, but there's a few people I know who are dead set on voting Democrat, even though, for example, they might be pro-Israel or they might be skeptical of the Democrats' broader platform, but they just don't like Trump. And that's this. Seth Meyers has moved dramatically in terms of his backing in 2016. It's not that he's become less corporate. It's that the corporate has embraced the crazy. Ilhan Omar. I've never said that people should shut up or that they can't express their views. Even people that I think are ridiculous, people that are idiots, people that have views that are basically abhorrent. I think Ilhan Omar is a lot of those things. Never called for her to be censored. But she claims that she's been censored. She's claimed that she's been under duress and been under threat. And yeah, there was a death threat against her, but there were death threats against a lot of people. And the fact is that as a member of Congress, she is afforded a little bit more protection. It's not as much as a member of the cabinet or the president, but members of Congress can get extra security if there is a credible threat against them. The fact is, however, that when you take into account the fact that people like Ilhan Omar, yes, they get a little firestorm of criticism from the right, and then guess what? The next day, they're on Stephen Colbert. And that's exactly what happened. She was on Stephen Colbert the same week that all of this, whatever was the last firestorm of hers with AIPAC or something, because she is the right type of person. She is an it girl. People gravitate towards her type of personality if you're on the left. It doesn't matter that she has a very thin grasp on a lot of the topics she's talking about, or the fact that she has a lot of questionable issues with her personal life. For example, it's almost assured that she was married to her brother, or that she was married to two men at the same time. Illegal. Or that, and there's also issues concerning her campaign financing, and there's issues concerning the fact that she's advocated on behalf of youth that went and tried to join ISIS and got arrested. So I find it very ridiculous that people are trying to say, well, the Democratic Party is a broad tent and people like Ilhan Omar are a very small minority. That's not really the issue. The issue is that the majority doesn't know how to really respond to those opinions. And, that's why I think that the Democratic Party needs to split. In 1992, there was an incident that happened where Sister Soldier, who was a member of the group Public Enemy, she made some sort of, I don't even remember what the statement was, because at the time I was probably not even in first grade. But I read about this years and years later. And she said something, I believe it was derogatory towards police or towards white people or something. And at the time, Governor Clinton was running for president, and he made a strong rebuke of her comment. And that was called the Sister Soldier moment, where Clinton suddenly set himself out there as the voice of mainstream America, of people who were, typical Democrats who, they might live in a place like Muncie, Indiana, and they might, mow the lawn every day, and they might work at a car factory or something, but they need somebody who would advocate on behalf of middle class concerns and against the corporate greed. And that's what that's what won the Democrats the election. People who, on the one hand, it was basically that Bill Clinton was cool enough while still being mellow. That doesn't work anymore in America because, as you know, Bill Clinton didn't come through with a lot of his promises to the working class. In fact, in many cases, he actually rendered to the Republicans a lot of concessions. The Glass-Steagall Act was repealed under him. The Telecom Act of 1996, I believe, was that was for sure under him. So now you're going to have more and more people who are, people like Seth Meyers are not real progressives. They're essentially corporate Starbucks progressives. They live in New York. They only converse with people of their own type, and they look down on their noses not only at the conservative hayseeds out in the Midwest. They look down at people like me. I live in an urban area, but I live in the Midwest. They look down at people who are progressives of like a little more of a niche community, people like, some of these anti-vaxxers or some of those, natural healing people. They just look at themselves as the embodiment of the real America, the America that corporate entities like their own has fashioned out of the bulk masses, which are us. So, yeah, I think that it's a dim view of 2020 because they now think that in order to really sell their candidate, they need to appeal to the people like Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders and people like that. So, no, I don't think if you're a person who's a moderate Democrat, you can't leave your, you can't commit your vote to somebody like Joe Biden. I don't think that a Sister Soldier moment is coming to Joe Biden. And this isn't to say that Bill Clinton was right at the time. I don't really care about Sister Soldier. I don't care if people say crazy things like she did. I'm just saying that was the moment he really propelled himself into the race as somebody who was apart from Jerry Brown and everybody else. and then that made him basically a centrist candidate. The centrist candidate is not going to be necessarily a good attribute this election. And yeah, Joe Biden is leading in the polls for the moment, but we haven't seen him on the debate stage. And I would say that people ought to remember that Bernie Sanders does have a much better organizing machine and could probably mobilize more people and get more people to the polls in some of these states, especially New Hampshire, which is one of the early ones. That's about it. I hope you like this video. Put in the chat, or sorry, either the chat or the comments, which one you hate more, Seth Meyers or Meghan McCain. I can't really decide. Sorry about that. I think I just hate both of them. But yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, please subscribe to me on Minds.com. That's at Chef Leopard on Minds.com, as well as on BitChute, same thing at Chef Leopard, and on Gab at Starscream85.